Hi, I'm Donna Wolfe from Naztazia.com.
Today, I'll show you how to hand sew for beginners. Hand sewing allows you to make brand new fabric items and repair or alter existing ones. To begin, you will need some all-purpose hand sewing needles and small scissors to cut thread and larger scissors to cut fabric. You will need spools of all-purpose thread. I like to match the thread to the fabric, but white thread works with light items and black with dark ones. You'll need some fabric. Woven fabric or knit fabric or fleece all work. But for beginners, I highly recommend regular craft felt. It is very easy to work with when you are first starting out. I'm folding it in half and then again so I can get 4 pieces of fabric to practice with. They make special fabric markers so you don't damage your work. I'm making marks every centimeter since this is a nice spacing for practicing sewing stitches. Cut off about 30 inches of thread from the spool. Now we have to insert the thread through the sewing needle. This is indeed quite challenging and probably the most difficult part of hand sewing. A little water on the ends helps a lot. Sometimes it goes through right on the first try. Or you can get a threader. These work great because it's much easier to thread the threader through first, and then place the thread in and pull it through like this. Now comes the next part, making a knot at the end of the thread. Now granted, maybe this is the tougher part of hand sewing. There are 2 main ways to make a knot. The classic way is to wrap the thread around like this, and then roll it between your fingers. Scrape it off with the 3rd finger and pull it like this. Now, if the first way was a bit tough, you can just make several knots over and over again like this. You'll want to make the knot larger than the spaces within your fabric so the knot doesn't go through. Once completed, run the thread through your fingers like this to even out both sides. And now you are ready to sew some stitches. Take 2 pieces of your craft felt fabric and place them together. Insert the sewing needle from the back like this. The knot should stop at the back and not go through. Make a small stitch this way by entering the sewing needle through the fabric like this. And pull. And now make a stitch this way. And then the opposite way. This is a thimble. It's a metal piece that protects your fingers. Whenever you are starting, I'd highly recommend wearing one to prevent hurting your thumb or whatever finger seems to get in the way. Insert for the first part of the stitch, and then insert in the opposite direction for the second part of the stitch. Continue doing this method of making stitches across the fabric. At the end of the fabric, make 1 more stitch. And you can see what this looks like. Don't worry if it's not perfect, this is just for practice. Turn the work to the wrong side or the back side of the fabric. This is usually the side that won't be seen. Make a small stitch like this. Next, wrap the thread, and it doesn't matter which direction. Wrap the thread around the sewing needle 3, 4, 5, or even 6 times. Then pull through like this. This forms a solid knot to keep the thread from unraveling. You can even make another small stitch and repeat this whole wrapping process if you wish. Cut the thread, and now you have successfully sewn two pieces of fabric together using a running stitch, sometimes also referred to as the basting stitch if the stitches are made longer. Felt doesn't slide all over the place when you are sewing with it, so it's easy to hold the pieces together just with your hands. However, most fabric needs some kind of temporary pinning to keep it together. These pins are especially made to hold the fabric together while you sew. You can use them in a horizontal direction like this. Or if you prefer, you can use them vertically as well. It's more or less your personal preference. My sewing needle has been threaded and has a knot at the end. I'll insert the sewing needle from the back of the fabric like this for the first stitch. This time, we're going to do a type of whip stitch called the Overcast Stitch. This is how we connect two pieces of fabric together using their edges. As you can see, the stitch is made from the back to the front of the work, and then the thread lays over the top edge of the fabric. This is a pretty simple and quick stitch to use. It also looks nice around a blanket or anything where you want to have a decorative edging. And finish it using that wrap technique I showed in the previous stitch. Remove the pins. And here's the finished work. Now let's just say the stitches don't exactly look so good. Here's how to remove or rip out your stitches. You can use something called a seam ripper, or you can just use a pair of small scissors. You'll want to cut the incorrect stitches like this. Then pull them out like this as you go. And that's how to take out stitches if you need to. Sometimes we don't want to connect two separate pieces of fabric. Sometimes we just want to hem or sew up one piece of fabric. I have to hem every pair of my son's school pants, and this is how I do it. You'll fold up about a 1/2 inch of the fabric from the bottom, and then fold it up again. This encases what is oftentimes called the raw edge of a piece of fabric. And then we can pin it. I happen to like putting my pins on the diagonal for this process. Thread your sewing needle and knot it on the bottom. Then insert like this. We're going to take very small stitches along the back, like this. And then pierce through the folded up side of the fabric, like this. And pull through. You can see it on the back. And again, small stitch here, and then stitch through the folded part, and pull through. Then repeat. Granted, I'm using white thread, which is very noticeable for you to see clearly in the video. But if this was a pair of pants, I'd be trying to use the same color thread as the pants. This way, the tiny stitches made through the fabric won't be as noticeable along the other side. Now, if this was a pair of pants, the folded up part would not be seen. Only the outer part, like this, would be seen. And now finally, how to sew on a button. Mark where you want to sew the button. We have to be careful with fabric since it can pucker, and around a button, it can even rip after many uses. First, start off with inserting the sewing needle like this. We want the knot directly under the actual button. Then try and figure out where one of the buttonholes will be. And insert the sewing needle like this. We're going to work on the diagonal for this button. And then down like this. Before we pull it tightly, we need to insert a pin underneath the threads like this. Buttons can't be too close to the fabric, otherwise you won't fit them nicely into the buttonhole. The pin makes the stitches a little looser. We're going to repeat making these stitches 3 or 4 times like this. And again, and one more time. Pull out the pin. Now it's time to sew the other diagonal stitch. After you make the stitch, be sure to place the pin underneath. Repeat this stitch 3 or 4 more times for this particular side. Once completed, remove the pin. Turn to the other side of the fabric. Place the sewing needle up, but not into the buttonhole. We want to reach more to the underside of the button. Next, wrap the thread around the button about 3 times. Reach in directly underneath the button and take some very small stitches. If you place the sewing needle through one of the loops, it forms a nice knot to secure it. Cut the thread, and you have a good solid button that won't pucker the fabric. Plus the back section is neat as well. And now you know some of the basics of hand sewing.
To get more videos like this, please subscribe to my YouTube channel.